Hello, friends. I want to tell you about our newest affiliate, BF Genetics. Would you like to grow your very own medicinal mushrooms in the comfort of your own home? BF Genetics is a small family-owned and operated farm in northern Colorado, providing the highest quality mushroom genetics and growing supplies. Everything from substrate, spores, and cultures to all the information you need to educate yourself about medicinal mushrooms. Right now, if you order with coupon code FKN10, you'll get 10% off your entire order. And right now, you can get buy two, get one free spore swaps. To get started today, just use the links right in the description. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Neil Gaur. First, I'm going to run through these announcements. You can rent or purchase the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, from our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, or our OTT site. Just click the links right in the description. It'll soon be dropping on multiple streaming platforms. The film is also available with a Rockfin Premium membership. Just go to rockfin.com/FKN+. You'll get access to all our premium content as well as all the premium content from every creator on Rockfin. We will soon be moving the Forbidden Knowledge News studio next month. This will unfortunately delay production for the second film, as well as deplete the small budget we already have. If you'd like to help with a donation, again, anything is always greatly appreciated. Any donation of $20 or more, you're going to get a download of the film, as well as a PDF of A Warning from History. You can also help by downloading our episodes directly through Spreaker, which is our podcast provider. That is always free to you. Finally, I am booking guests for March and April. If you have suggestions or you would like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Neil Gaur. He is founder of Portal to Ascension. He travels the world facilitating gatherings and filming documentaries that are intended to empower the individual to reclaim their sovereignty and awaken to their full potential. He presents his research on the ancient wisdom and future science of sound, vibration, and frequency, as well as in-depth explorations into ancient civilizations, archaeological discoveries, space anomalies, shedding light on esoteric wisdom, and exploring ways in which we can create unity and peace on Earth. Neil, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. It's good to be here with you again.
Yes, it's great to have you back. Always a wonderful discussion. Today we're going to get further into your insights about the true nature of disclosure, extraterrestrials. You've just done an event about galactic origins, and what's really happening behind the mass awakening that we're seeing and where people are going with this evolution of consciousness that seems to be occurring globally. Now, before we get to any of that, just quickly remind the audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Sure. So, hello, everybody. My name is Neil. I'm the founder of Portal to Ascension. I started woke up to a lot of this information by looking for the root of all religion back in 2000 when I was 18 years old. And that started the rabbit hole research. I found the Sumerian scriptures. I started finding similarities in all these ancient civilizations. And that connected me very quickly to, are some of these beings and gods and angels that we've visited us, beings from other stars? And what does that mean with the ancient awareness? What did they know about quantum physics and the nature of reality? So that's kind of how it started. You know, went down the rabbit hole for 8 years. In 2008, I created Portal to Ascension started with because it became very spiritual, even though I was looking linearly into ancient history, quantum physics, and all that. It became very spiritual. And I started creating events, sound healing events, consciousness events, meditation events, which morphed into ancient alien conferences, which morphed into consciousness and ancient history. And all the information that I've been researching kind of just came together at Portal to Ascension. And since 2008, I've been creating events on these topics. 2016, we moved to an online platform because 2008 to 2016, it was all in-person live events. And now we're doing live and in-person. So we do conferences, tours, retreats. We took 2 groups of people to Egypt in September. We do around 80 online conferences and workshops a year. And we're doing the Galactic Origins cruise. We're taking 200 people on a cruise down to the Yucatan and Honduras and Belize at the end of this year. So basically, we're an event production company for consciousness, and every single type of media production, every single type of event production that we can do for consciousness, we're doing, including starting the music label very soon here. And you can check out our website, portaltoascension.org. Just by signing up, you get access to 3,000 hours of presentations because we've been keeping all the content that we've created. And we have an archive of this awareness now. So we are pretty much a one-stop shop for consciousness and, connecting with as many people as possible and creating gatherings for people to really understand who we are, where we came from, and what this means for our future.
Right on. Well, I think a good place to start today. Each time you're on, I like to get your insights into where we're at with the true nature of what we're seeing as disclosure right now, not only coming from our government and media, but from the individuals. I've noticed that as time goes on, there seems to be a lot more misinformation being inserted into not only the media, but our own communities and a lot of individuals that are here to muddy the waters. And there's a lot of events that have been unfolding lately. A lot of my guests believe that we're going to start to see more and more quote-unquote supernatural or paranormal unfoldings that will be presented to us in the media for certain outcomes or agendas or reactions, but it's really not what is occurring in the true nature of what we understand as extraterrestrials or even people's contact experiences as of the last few years. So I want to get your insights into all that and where we're at with the extraterrestrial phenomenon.
Yeah, that's the thing with this topic, with almost everything in the world now. There's so much disinfo, misinfo, media, social media, all types of content coming at us from every angle. It's really hard to know what's true, what's not. And when you're speaking about the paranormal thing, I was immediately thinking about the Miami occurrence over there, or what happened, and all the police and everything, whether it's real, whether it's not. I'll say on that one, first of all, like I've seen some people doing some deep dives on it. And you can only speculate on that. There's not actually enough information to know which one is the truth, which is probably what they want,
Right, exactly.
to be quite honest with you. And, so it's like, I want to speak on 2 things before I get into the information here that you spoke of. Someone told me like 15 years ago, if there was going to be, it was a whistleblower I worked with. I don't remember who now, but I remember what he said. If there's going to be any industry, any topic in the world that was the most infiltrated with disinfo agents, it's going to be the UFO one, right? And the reason for that is a lot of people may not, you wonder why. And the reason for that is, think of all the elements of reality and society and social economy that are all connected to not only the awareness of this technology, but the fact that we're not alone in the universe, right? So the main industries, that will be have to be readdressed. Electricity, power, petrol, right? How did they get here, right? Pharmaceuticals, cures for illnesses that actually already exist, and many of these beings live in a state of harmony using frequency technology that we, a lot of illnesses and sicknesses that have happened on the planet, our own shadow governments have had the technology to make sure that they never even occurred, including, what happened over the last few years, right? None of that needed to occur. And religion, what did these beings know about our connection to source, to consciousness, to other civilizations, were some of these beings actually the deities that visited us, right? And that's just like literally simplifying it right there. So just think of who is the controller of every single one of those. The controller, the systems that have been put into place to control each one of those are literally what keeps humanity under the chokehold of some sort of elite system that is not allowing it for us to become the sovereign beings that we're supposed to be. You
Mm.
know, back in the day, we used to call our kings and queens the sovereign, right? And how interesting is it that we're moving into calling them the sovereigns because we were the peasants to realizing our own sovereignty. And that's really, if you like, again, another simplification, if you want to get to like the super simplification of it all, it's like they're afraid to lose up their to give up them being the sovereign for us becoming the sovereign beings that we are, and realizing that we have so much power. And also, not only do we have more people than them, but we also have these innate abilities and gifts that are going to come aligned. And with this awareness, it will be the beginning, you know, of us getting into that. So I just wanted
Mm.
to kind of start with that, and I'll just keep going if you want, Chris.
Yeah, go for it.
And and then like the paranormal thing, I want to just like to go now get into the linear stuff of disclosure.
Hmm.
You know, when the whole ATIP thing came out with Lou Elizondo, right? I'm not sure if we even spoke about this particular thing on here before, but when it come out, the Pentagon, they denied immediately that there was any ATIP program, right? They said that there was no program, that Lou Elizondo didn't work in there, and all this information. And then when you look a little deeper, you realize that ATIP was actually the nickname of the program. It wasn't really the name of the program.
Hmm.
And that's what happens. You got to be really meticulous with your words, because if you say to them, "Oh, was there a program Will is done as a part of? It was called ATIP. Was he doing this?" Nope, because it was called something else. That was a nickname, and I forget. I think it was called AWSAP, AWSAP, something like that, AWSAP, and that was the name of the program. And in the program, UFOs were only one part of it. The rest of it was interdimensionality, ghosts, specters, Skinwalker Ranch, whole other paranormal world, like horror movie style stuff, to maybe just like spirits in general. And they didn't want to be ridiculed when they first came out with it, so they only took a part of the program and then went out with that. So, you know, you're mentioning paranormal information, all this stuff coming out. It's very interesting because once we start looking deeper into the UFO question, when they start doing it, they're going to realize that these worlds are interchangeable with each other. That
Hmm.
this UFO thing is connected to the paranormal, incarnational cycles, discarnated beings, the way the matrix is created, why there are souls stuck between dimensions. All of this has to do with a greater understanding of not just the UFOs, but who these beings and where they came from. You know, and I can go deeper into about stop for a second if you want
Well,
to
yeah, I
jump in
want
there.
to get into the origins of these beings. But before we do that, earlier you said that what really started you on this journey was seeking the root of religion. And
Yeah,
this goes back to that religion, especially modern organized religion, the Abrahamic religions have kept us, in a sense, enslaved and in darkness and constant war for centuries. Now, do you think that these religions were originated off of a spiritual contact basis where we made contact with some kind of entities that did not have our best interest in mind and wanted us to remain under their rule? Or was this a man-made construct so that man could rule? Because we all know
mm,
humans can be quite evil. What do you think?
yeah. Well, when you talk about the Abrahamic religions, then you get into the Sumerian scriptures because the Old Testament is almost verbatim Sumerian scriptures.
Mm.
For example, we were created in his image and his likeness comes from we were created in their image and in their likeness. And that's a text straight out of the Sumerian scriptures. So if we look at, you know, you can look at a lot of different cultures around the world and you can speculate on what older scriptures they come from. And many of them can connect to the Sumerian scriptures on some level. But I would say that there's a direct connection to the Sumerians and the Old Testament and all three Abrahamic religions. So now we get into the story of the Anunnaki and the hybridization of humanity, and being created in their image was actually a genetic creation of humanity. Now, in regards to whether, so I don't think the original story was actually a human-made story. I think it's an actual ET kind of connection story, but there was some sort of thing that happened there. So now, when we look into this, is actually, we spoke in the beginning here about new information. This is like 2 weeks old in my head here. So like, okay, so Saturn, right? Saturn for the Phoenicians was called Elohim. Okay, and for the in the Middle Eastern area around the times of the Phoenicians, before Moses technically went there and killed everybody, which is part of the story. Uh, when before that happened, Elohim was the god of Saturn, right? And then when the Israelites, that they weren't Israelites yet because they'd never really lived there yet, when they had went from Egypt, worshiping Isis in Egypt, worshiping Ra Amen in the desert because they were going to through the desert and they were worshiping the sun god because it was like excruciating heat and whatever other reasons. And then when they went to the Phoenician land, they were worshiping Elohim. So we have Isis, Ra Amen, Elohim, Israel, Isis, Ra, Elohim, Israel, right? So the three gods, those three deities created the first monotheistic religion, right? Which is interesting because we're told that this is part of what I learned in the beginning. Like, paganism, polytheism, and monotheism are two separate things. You can't even compare the two. But the three names of these three deities literally created that first technical monotheistic religion, even though there was monotheism before. And now we get to the Phoenicians worshiping Elohim. So when the Israelites, the Jews, the Abrahamic tribes got to that land, they adopted the god of the Phoenicians, Elohim. God of the Phoenicians was the god of Saturn, which is why they worship on the Sabbath, Saturn's day, Elohim's day. But they changed it, and all three gods they made into the sun god, because all these cults are actually Saturn worshiping cults under the disguise of the sun god. So it's actually worshiping Saturn, but is pretending to be the sun. Now we have Saturn equals Satan, sun equals God. And we have these Abrahamic religions worshiping Satan rather than God, because God is pretending, Satan is pretending to be God. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So it's like, and now I'm not talking about good or bad because I don't think Saturn's bad. I don't even think Satan's bad. I think that's a whole other podcast on what that comes from. So then we have them worshiping the Sabbath. Then all of a sudden, we have Jesus come about, and he has a new covenant. And now when do we worship God? Sunday. He changed it from the Sabbath to the Sunday in order for us to start worshiping the sun god. But the same exact God was worshipped. They didn't change it. He didn't say, okay, we're going to get rid of the Old Testament God. They continued it. So now let's go back to the bigger picture of your question here. So we have the Anunnaki story, which was a connection to Yahweh, which was the God of the Old Testament. And Yahweh was most likely the same God as Elohim, the God of Saturn. But what occurred was, I'm jumping all over the place here, but I'll slow down. In 700 BCE, there was a monotheistic swipe on the whole planet, right? The Israel tribes existed during that time. The Israeli tribes were pagan. Were pagan. They were not monotheistic. 700 BCE and before. A guy that I work with, Paul Wallace, we did a whole presentation on this, a 2-hour presentation on this, and he speaks about all the evidence to show that in 700 BCE, something occurred on the planet where there was a wipe of monotheism. And in specific faiths, let's talk about the Jewish faith, pre-Jewish faith, proto-Jewish faith, if you will. They all of a sudden gave one name to all the gods in their religion. There was a god for this, there was a god for that, there was a god for this. All of the gods became Yahweh. So, for example, there was a god called Ashtar, right? And Ashtar was a goddess from the Pleiades. Now she was wiped out, and all of her stories were the benevolent stories, and all of those stories were changed with Yahweh. And then we have all the stories of Yahweh, which happen to be negative stories of like fire and brimstone, kill the sodomites, that kind of stuff. So it's like, So I feel that it all comes from, especially with these Abrahamic religions, a lot of ET intervention going on. But then, like, what happens is when Christianity occurred, mainly, definitely before that, humans start adding their own BS to it, man. You know, they
Mm.
start adding their own things to the whole story, and now we get diluted from the original truth. And if you look at all religions and you see and you find out what's similar between all religions, all the good stuff is the similar stuff. You know, treat each other equally, love each other, blah blah blah. And then all the stuff that divides us, that is what I feel has been utilized by government's elite to exert control.
So, if most of our spiritual history has been manipulated by extraterrestrials, do you believe that there is one true spiritual creator of all life?
Well, I probably believe similar to you. I would say, like, I don't feel there's like a dude chilling somewhere, right,
Right.
on a throne,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that. Um, I, I feel it's all okay. So I feel that this reality is more illusionary than the illusionary people say think it is. You know,
Yeah.
like it's like straight up, like we don't exist, dude. Like everything is vibrating frequency. What is going on, right?
Mm.
And all of it. So just imagine it like, I tread carefully when I speak about life as a computer because people think it's inorganic, but so that's my disclaimer on it. But just think of it like this, that you have a hard drive, right? And inside the hard drive, you just have a bunch of electrical currents moving around. And these electrical currents have video games, Word documents, all types of stuff. Say it's a hard drive of just video games, right? And say it's like AI infused video games that we're creating now, where all of a sudden there's 3 billion worlds, which is actually exist in a certain thing, because AI has now just created all these worlds, right?
Right.
And you can't even explore it in one lifetime. But the hard drive is God.
Mm.
So we are like, so when they say you are a part of God and you're not separate from it, it's quite literal. Like this is all it, and we're part of the frequencies within it, having individual experiences within that.
Going back to the root of religion, extraterrestrial manipulation of humanity, how does this all relate to what we're seeing unfolding now with the tensions in the Middle East, the increasing psychological operations, possibility of UFOs being revealed to the public? This all seems very prophetic in many ways. How do you see this
Yeah.
unfolding?
Well, so such great questions. I hardly ever tell people they got good questions because people have good questions. Only when I know it's the best questions do I say it.
Thank you,
You're
sir.
one of the best, bro. Seriously.
Thank you.
So like when it comes to what's going on in the Middle East, let's break that down first. So first of all, it gets to trauma, galactic trauma, right? I'm starting to believe now that Earth, and I don't mean this in a negative way, is kind of like a processing center, a mental institute for galactic trauma. It's like we're sent down here in order to process things that have occurred through the universe. Another analogy I've come up with recently is, like back in the day, like Trojan War style, where they would two armies would be on the battlefield, and then they would say, "All right, we're gonna choose our best guy. You choose your best guy, and we'll fight it out. And if we both fight it out, then the rest of the people can just go home and you win. No one else has to die, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
That's like Earth for the universe, for the galaxy. So what it seems to have occurred is because if you look at I've worked hundreds of experiences, thousands of presentations on people's experiences on planets. I've heard all types of stories, and it seems that there's not too many stories of a fully flourishing multiple species planet out there, especially in higher dimensions. In this dimension, it's a little more challenging. You need certain elements. You're a victim to the elements. So you need to be in a specific area for life to flourish. But when you go into higher dimensions, you're now able to control the elements around you. You don't need to be distant from the sun. You don't need this amount of oxygen. You have the control over your external reality. In a lot of those dimensions, when you transcend it, you no longer experience loneliness in the same way. You no longer experience hate and fear and disconnection because the frequencies have shifted. And as that occurs, many of these species exist with few other species on their planets or are completely involved in their mission. Now look at Earth. I mean, I haven't ever Googled how many species of anything there are on Earth, but there's millions of species on Earth. So how did Earth come about? And as I've been doing this research and learning about different experiences, I'm realizing there's cockroach beings, mantis beings, ant beings. There's all almost like every single species on Earth. There's even dragonfly beings. I have a whole story on the dragonfly people. And like, so it seems that all these species in our galaxy have donated descendants is Earth.
You
So
froze
it
up
could
there.
be
You said that all species in this galaxy have donated what now?
DNA. So it
DNA.
seems like this is my theory. It could be like 80% of the species, could be 90%, could be 100%. That many, if not all, species in our galaxy that are at least a part of what went down with our karmic lineage of humanity, maybe beyond that, have donated DNA to the Earth experience and allowed for their descendants to be created. Like ant people are connected to the ant beings, so on and so forth. All types of ETs have donated to different races of humans on Earth, and now it's I feel the test of Earth is for us to get over what I call galactic speciesism. It's like racism on a galactic level. We've had all these wars, all these differences, all this division occur. And so it's after this chaos that happened in the universe, Earth is basically the experiment of how we can bring harmony by just putting a few people in the battlefield rather than the whole galaxy and create peace in the cosmos by creating peace on Earth. And part of that will be a day where we all live in harmony with one another. So now how this connects to the Middle East. Quite a while ago, I heard you might have heard about the wars that happened in Orion. It was the DNA wars basically, and there was an invasion in Orion. There was a battle between reptilians and humans, but they weren't just reptilians and humans against each other. Those reptilians and humans against reptilians and humans. It was an ideological thing, and within that there was a group of beings that escaped persecution after the end of the war and came to Earth, and they were one of the original creators and the seeders of Earth. And as they came here, they took on the karma of what happened in Ryan onto Earth. And what I have been told many times now is that what's happening with terrorism, what's happening in the Middle East, is actually those two bloodline lineages working out their karma with each other.
Now, what would be some of the sources for that information that you just shared about those cosmic bloodlines?
Dolores Cannon is one of the best ones. Yeah,
Mm.
Dolores Cannon, as she, I've sat through hundreds of channelings, and then I've been also speaking to experiences that have been on craft and asked questions. Geraldine Orozco, she has a really good amount of information on that as well. And but Dolores Cannon for sure. And Dolores also shared in one of her presentations that before the first nuclear bomb went off, the nuclear test in 1945, that you might have heard this one too, that there was a call out to the universe after that. Basically, when what happens is when you deal with nuclear energy, and this might be a good segue into what's going on with the government because it's all about nuclear stuff with them in many ways, is that you basically are permeating through the fabric of space-time. If this is like, we explained kind of how this is a hard drive, how this is kind of illusionary. Imagine some sort of huge like virus within that, which is the bomb that splits the fabric of space-time, splits the fabric of what holds the hard drive together in half, and that energy permeates into other realities. So she was saying that because this happened, that all these beings were then invited to come to Earth, and there was the law, the prime directive, right? Like the law of non-interference. You cannot go down to Earth as an ET and interfere with it. You need to incarnate into Earth. So a call went out to the universe. All these beings started coming here and incarnating in order to make some change, and pretty much. Oh, and she said before, what I was trying to say is, she said before this actually occurred, there was specific races on Earth, like human races, like Jews and all this stuff, that were only pulling in souls from specific ET incarnations. And then when the atomic bomb went off, when they started testing the atomic bomb, the law of a soul being connected to this specific race was thrown out because of the need for people to come down to Earth. And what I get from this, tying it into Geraldine Orozco's work, is that there's two types of genetics. There's the genetics of your actual human body, and then there's the genetics of your soul. And your soul doesn't always isn't always in alignment with the genetics of your body. Your body, say you're born as a Mayan, right? And say that the Pleiadians came down and did some interference with the human population here. And it's like Pleiadian, Syrian, a couple other races, and Homo erectus created that Mayan, right? And then the soul is a specific soul straight from Arcturus, has its own genetic, etheric genetic blueprint compared to the soul. And before the atomic bomb, most souls came down with similar genetics to the actual body that they were incarnated into. And then things changed after that. That was what she shared.
Now, when you try and look at the bigger picture of everything that's unfolding, it doesn't always match up with one top-down pyramid power structure. It seems like sometimes there are different factions fighting for different outcomes over humanity. Do you think that's the case, or is it just a deception to keep us separated and in the dark?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I can only speculate on this, but that's something I think about all the time too. Like, is there one sort of ruling elite that's just looking over it all and just playing both sides? Or are they multiple factions that are at war with each other? When it comes to, like, let's talk about, like, for example, Russia and the US and all that. I feel that there was one type of ruling power and they kind of agreed to have use each other as basically the evil one. They use each other in order to basically continue to install fear into humanity. And then at this point, what's going on now? It could be that these factions have split up, and that they're warring against them. But it all depends. Like, is there some sort of ET ruling elite, like some sort of reptilian energy or whatever people might think it is out there that is controlling that? And are these the families that are human incarnates? And are these the peons within that are having their own issues with each other? Right? That's one theory. Some people say that the ruling archonic energy that has been controlling Earth has actually left. And now the families that were basically the peons of these beings have been left here now to kind of fend for themselves. And because their overlords have left, they're now at war with each other too. So those are the theories. I don't really know the answer.
Right on. Now, you said recently you've been focusing on galactic origins, and this can be a very large topic, but earlier you mentioned the different types of species of beings that could be anything from mantis to reptilian to animal to bird to human, and they all have different versions of this represented on Earth. Tell us a little bit about your understanding of how this relates to galactic origins.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to first share about what they've been saying in the mainstream in regards to this. Like, so often, I just watched Russ Collard and Gary Nolan 2 hour long interview, right? And within 5 minutes, he was like, do you really think this is ET? And then Gary goes, no, I don't think it's ET. And he starts explaining why, and starts saying it's interdimensional. And when you go into other, like, so many things within the Congress and mainstream coming out now, they keep saying, like, it's oh, I don't think it's extraterrestrial. I don't think it's extraterrestrial. And it seems that even to these guys that are realizing, like, oh my God, something's going on, they're still not willing to grab hold onto something that's been so taboo for so long: extraterrestrial life. Now, interdimensional life and extraterrestrial life can be interchangeable. It doesn't have to be any different, because extraterrestrial just means other than terrestrial. Alien just means alien from our reality. So Gary Nolan said that, I think it was him, one interview I watched yesterday, was saying that it seems that some of these beings are actually from another Earth that coexists with us, that is phased out of our reality. So they're just jumping from their Earth to our Earth without any distance involved, right? So that all that stuff exists. Pretty much like Solomon said, like, everything under the sun exists, because that's what happens when you put into this game, into this computer, like the code to experience everything and anything that is possible. Everything and anything that's possible exists, but to throw out the baby with the bathwater, if you will, like, and just start saying that there's no ET life, that the ETs aren't visiting us, it's beings from here. Like Gary Nolan said so many times in that interview, and so did other people, that, oh, I think they've been here for a long time, longer than we have. Okay, so did they come from somewhere else? Did they evolve off our planet? But that's just one phenomena. There's so much occurring. And it's interesting because what they keep saying this, reiterating over and over and over again, that they've been here for a long time. I don't think they're from somewhere else, is they're completely throwing out all the work all of us, like, and my colleagues are doing with this, right? I'm not saying I'm pissed at them. I'm just saying, because all the work we're doing is we're literally talking about the beings from the Pleiades, the beings from Arcturus, the beings from Antares, all of this. So to feel like that isn't even not a possibility, there's so many questions that can be answered for them spiritually, but they're so linearly minded and not looking at it from a spiritual understanding, that I feel they're not willing to expand their perspective. And one thing could be is that there are beings from other planets, and how do they get here? Interdimensionally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how hard is it to understand that if you're from a different planet, you can't go faster than the speed of light if that's without having some sort of technology to bend space and time. And what happens when you bend space and time? Well, you're now traveling through dimensions, right? And if time is a dimension, right, which it is, technically, if you're doing anything with time, you're going interdimensionally, right? So just wanted to share, like, that's some of what I'm noticing is going on. They keep reiterating it. At this point, I'm just like, it's really so much more going on out there than most may realize. There was even in Project Stargate. Project Stargate is so much deeper than just the remote viewing to Mars. In Project Stargate, there was a remote viewers that found 3 different mountains across the world with ET bases inside of them, working alongside military officials. It's on the Project Stargate documents, right? What is going on and what's been happening on this planet? There's such a huge variation from the day-to-day life to, like, the actual activities that are going on with certain humans and how they're interacting with ETs.
There's obviously very high level military industrial groups that are aware of a lot more of what's happening than they'd ever like to give off, but it seems like even what they know, there are many layers beyond what they could even understand.
Exactly. And yeah, and then they're not willing to look at that because it's the arrogance of science these days. You think what you know is the epitome of everything, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like they're not willing to see that there could be something else that is going on more than what they believe. There was another skiff that just happened a few days ago, maybe 2 days ago. Tim Burchett, Luna, and then Garcia, they were all in there. And I watched another interview of Garcia yesterday on this, and the reporting on this is that he was visibly shaken, Garcia, like, and they said in this skiff, right? So these guys have heard all types of stuff, all types of whistleblowers are coming out now saying all types of things to them, and they said that information they had never heard of before came out, and he literally didn't know what to do with it. So, like, the layers are starting to peel back hardcore. The DoD, whatever shadow aspect is going on, keeps denying all of this. But the question is that it's coming out so much, they're being so exposed. Why do they keep denying when so much information is coming out? And I feel that the atrocities and the crimes against the humanity are so huge that they much rather lie and have it backfire against them. That because the more they lie and say, "Oh, we don't know anything," the more that it just shows us that they do know something. You know, because obviously something's out there. But the level of what's been going on is so beyond what anybody could fathom that I feel that they're a little concerned of what's going to happen to the people that have been the gatekeepers of this information.
You mentioned that interdimensional travel is essentially time travel, and the beings that are doing this must be very aware of how the universe works, how time doesn't exist, how
Yeah.
to manipulate space time, like you were saying earlier. Could it be that the beings that we're being contacted by, as we perceive in our modern times, could be from our future and past and present at the same time, but trying to help us evolve in certain ways because they're aware of what could possibly be coming in the future because they've already
Yeah.
experienced it.
See, now we get into like the realm of like the stories and what info can, like, is it disinfo, is it not? And I'll just share what I'm speaking about here. Is that there was this other guy who claimed to be a whistleblower, claimed to work with Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar said he doesn't know him at all. I forgot his name right now, but he said that there was two races of beings. There was P-52s and P-47s, and those beings were gray aliens from our future. And 52 is 52,000 years in the future. 47 is 47,000 years in the future, and that's why they P-52, P-47s, and that these beings were basically saying one of them was trying to had a nefarious agenda, and one of them had a positive agenda. I forget which one it was, but one of them was saying, "Hey, you better watch yourself. This is what you're going to be in the future." Right. So now this guy came out. There's a lot of information about him, but people are kind of wary and think that he might be lying. Okay. So now when it comes to other grays, we've have heard other stories from other whistleblowers and experiencers that a lot of the grays actually come back and they have been saying this kind of story that, hey, you better do something on the planet because you're going to become us. You're going to destroy your planet. You're going to go underground. You're going to become the grays. But many of these grays are interdimensional travelers coming from other universes where they had a whole different trajectory of their reality. And even though they came from a parallel Earth, it's actually not our Earth and not our future. So they've manipulated, this is again a story that people say, they've manipulated governments to thinking that they're going to become like, we're going to become like them, even though they come from a whole other universe that has nothing to do with our story and our trajectory. And chances are we may not even become them.
So we have essentially warring groups of these interdimensional beings that are deceiving humanity on all levels, but at the same time we have positive ETs, interdimensional beings that could essentially be connected to us in an ancestral way, in some other spiritual way, that are trying to help us find the right path. Is that essentially what
Yeah,
you're...
exactly. And it seems that, again, the law of non-interference, that when you're in this dimension and a being from this dimension, you're able to manipulate and interfere with it. The beings that are in other dimensions, more harmonic dimensions that some people call higher dimensions, when you're at that level, you get to an understanding of the way the universe works, and you realize that all polarity is a cosmic dance and things are happening the way they should be. So on one level, you don't want to interfere with the evolution of another reality in society. And you also know that what occurs, the darkness you experience, is the necessary darkness for you to understand the light. And if you get closer enough to source and have a higher dimensional awareness, you realize that the light and the darkness is loved equally by source, that there is no one is better than the other. When you get into lower and lower densities and dimensional experiences, the polarity of good, light and dark becomes denser and denser, and it eventually becomes good and evil. So if you've transcended out of that state of reality, you're not going to see what's happening to us as atrocities. You can see them as necessary growing pains, especially if we decided to come here knowing that we're going to be tortured on this planet, on some level. So a lot of these beings are benevolent and lending energy. Now, it's been said that this Earth experience has happened before and we've destroyed ourselves. So one rules that they have adopted is to not allow humanity to get destroyed. So we're going through all types of craziness, but when it comes to annihilating experiences, nuclear fallout, nuclear wars, right? They interfere, pollution of all our water systems, solar flare about to take out everything on the planet. They interfere in order to make sure that we don't actually get reset and wiped out. So a lot of these beings, again, that are the benevolent ones, they don't have the ego to want to have credit for what they do for us. So they're there in the back burners, and we're here on Earth in this density where we're talking a bunch of crap about the ones that are messing with us, thinking that we're all alone. And it's because the ones that mess with us, so they're on the forefront. They're the ones that are actually interacting with us. And we have even wrote about in our textbooks, in our scriptures. Why is it that Earth has this collective trauma around snakes and serpents throughout all our ancient scriptures, right?
Yeah.
And why is it that half the world has an opposite experience of snakes and serpents, and they're very divine, spiritual beings? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That gets into a whole other thing. Like, we're going to do a conference called the Orion Conference, where we're going to go deep into the polarity of the reptilians, because not all of them are bad as well. So we're
Right.
talking about that.
Now, I want to get into that in a minute. First, I want to get your insights into the connections between life after death and this interdimensionality. I had a guest on that believed that she had actually died in a car wreck and her soul was transferred into a different reality, to a different dimension that is very similar to the one she was living, but she believes could be infinite realities that are very similar to ones we experience here on Earth, and that if we die and we haven't finished our soul purpose or our mission in this reality, that we'll just be transported into a different version of that reality. What do you think about that?
I think it's possible, like I shared earlier, I think everything under the sun is pretty much possible. That, if we can get some sort of code, if you and I can go to school, learn the code, and then create our own video game that literally creates billions of worlds that no one can even explore through actual video console this lifetime, because there's so much. Imagine what we could do with our own consciousness when we get to that level, right? So whether it's like, okay, we haven't finished these experiences or not, could it be that we're so attached to the self-reflection of what has not been accomplished or been healed, that when we transition, we create a reality for ourselves to move into that? Is it us that does that? Or is there some sort of universal law that makes sure that's the only way we can move out of this? And that kind of goes into Buddhism, for example. In Buddhism, it's reincarnation. In Buddhism, the way reincarnation works is that the level of consciousness and your own belief system about yourself when you transition is what you create in your new reality. Okay, so for example, say that you are a psychopath, okay, and you literally have no remorse over anything that you do. Okay? And then you kill, do all types of crazy stuff, and then you die, but you're completely free. What in Buddhism's standpoint, technically you will go into a harmonic nirvana experience, right? And then also, who can really judge? Because a psychopath is like a chemical imbalance, brain issues, all this stuff, right? So if you have level of consciousness where, say that you aren't a psychopath, but you've done all types of crazy things your whole life, and then all of a sudden you forgave yourself in the last 2 to 3 years of your life, right? But you've done all this stuff, but you came to a clearing of your own mind, an old soul, and made peace with yourself. In the Buddhist standpoint, you go into a nirvanic state, So it's almost like an imprint of your own consciousness is what you carry on to the next one. And is that imprint a co-creation, or is that an imprint of full creation? Right? And are there levels where you're only co-creating? Like, is third dimensional reality co-creation and fourth dimension, and is fifth dimension purely creation? So these are just philosophical questions I think about, but I'm not, I don't have answers.
Yeah. Now we've got to get back to something you mentioned a few minutes ago about the different types of reptilians. This is something I've always been on the fence about until I had a reptilian encounter. It was actually with an ex-girlfriend of mine under a plant medicine experience. She shape-shifted into a reptilian, and it was a whole insane thing. Needless to say, we're no longer together. But it seemed more of a spiritual manifestation of something that may have been attached to her in a way. And I understand that there are more metaphysical type of reptilians and these seemingly physical beings. What do you think about that?
100%. First of all, we got to talk about the foundation of humanity in our galaxy, the first formation of humans. So the human template again, I'm all about disclaimers. First of all, it's so hard to even speak about this because if time doesn't really exist and doesn't exist the way it does, how do we even talk about a beginning? Was there even a beginning? You know? So like when humans first came into our galaxy, and some people say from the constellation of Lyra, Lyra was the first place we inhabited. This galaxy was already inhabited, fully inhabited by reptilian beings. There was insectoid and reptilians, but the insectoid beings, I mean, we don't really hear too much craziness about them. It's mostly the reptilians. They really were the rulers of this galaxy. The founder race of the reptilians were the dragon beings, actual dragons. And the dragons were the first serpentine race that millennia, way, way long time ago, formation of galaxy style, were the ones that seeded. They were the Elohim to the reptilians. You know how the Elohim were the Elohim to us? They were the Elohim to the reptilians. So when we came into the human template and we started going out into the galaxy, who were we going to meet? Well, we started meeting all types of reptilian races, and the original, the what something that was an expert of the first Elohim humanoid template in Lyra, well, they were expert geneticists, and so they were going around having fun with this. Let's go ahead and start hybridizing the human template all around the galaxy. You know, sometimes it wasn't always for fun. Sometimes they were like trying to escape wars and all types of craziness going on. And so they would go around and they would start doing this. But as they were doing this, they started also hybridizing with reptilian DNA. This was the original kind of, this is again, very, very simplification because I am not all knowing enough in this moment to know exactly everything that happened. But they started shifting with the reptilian DNA, and there was a law of the universe. Another law is you can't do that without permission of the species that you're doing it to. So they're doing it without permission. It created a huge rift in reptilian human interactions, and disharmony started to happen. We start seeing wars and all this stuff occurring, and kind of like the story of the Wraith and Stargate. I don't know if you know that show, but the Wraith of the Reptilians there, and this war that goes back multiple galaxies that no one even, after millennia and millennia, no one even knew what they're fighting for anymore. You know, it just became like a huge, crazy battle until the accumulation of that whole thing in Orion, where we had the DNA wars. That was a huge battle over, the what had happened. But at that point, many of the reptilians, even though some of them had warranted reasons of being upset at the humans, had committed atrocities, were also violating free will. There was all types of like universal laws being violated. And so then we get finally to the creation of Earth and a tribe of the Orion reptilians coming to Earth, bringing creator God technology and using it in order to exert control on this reality. So as this has happened, think of how massive our galaxy is. If the galaxy was predominantly reptilian races before that, to imagine that it was like an evil galaxy that humans came into probably would be a far-fetched thing to think about. Within all 13 dimensional experiences, 12 dimensions and then the void, well, actually within all 12 dimensions below the 13th, duality exists, polarity exists. Polarity is transcended after the void, the 13th. There's another series of dimensional experiences after that that are singularity experiences. This one, everything below that is polarity. Within polarity, you got all types of agendas, all types of intentions, you got good, bad, all types of things going on. So these beings run the gamut over experiences and what they're here for. Then we have the Earth experience, and we have a trauma with the reptilian race, and we start putting it in our scriptures, the Sumerian scriptures, the Abrahamic scriptures, all this stuff about this trauma that occurred, without the awareness that there's actually so much more experiences of reptilians throughout our galaxy. For example, the dragons, they're no longer physical; they're only etheric. Well, the red dragon tribe, at least, because that's the one I know about. There's other tribes. They're only etheric. So many of them, to get to what you said, have transcended physicality and exist in the etheric realms. Some in the lower astral, some in the higher dimensional aspects, but they're not all negative. Mm-hmm. There's actually many Like, for example, the dragon races are the stewards of the birthing process on Earth. They actually help the whole wormhole portal through the womb thing happen. They're reptilians. And without them, we wouldn't even be able to be incarnated. And these beings literally are assisting us without any acknowledgement. So most of the reptilians that are positive, they aren't out there saying, "Hey, look at me, look what I've done for you. You need to like give me credit for it all." But they are helping us. And one thing that the dragon races, the seeding races of the reptilians wants us to know is that humans have a lot more reptilian DNA in us than we think we do. We are actually a hybrid of reptilians and humanoid DNA, more than most other civilizations in our galaxy. So we are also going back to the whole karmic solution thing. We're also here to bring harmony to ourselves, to bring harmony to that aspect. It's like these civilizations that were at war with each other for so long, these different races, are actually embodied within ourselves. And until we become at peace with ourselves, we cannot bring peace to them. So even the reptilians, somebody shared to me like this once before, the reptilians, energy on Earth, the negative reptilians, represent the shadow work. Okay. Now, do you think shadow work is bad? It's a necessary thing in order to grow, right? So it's all perspective, really. And I'll just end it with around 95% of reptilian races are actually positive. There's only 5% of them that are have agendas that are not for the betterment of everyone.
Right on. It just becomes more and more apparent that you can't have the dark without the light, vice versa for human growth and consciousness evolution. Now, I know you got to take off in just a few minutes. Let's close on this. There's a big argument amongst the UFO community whether these experiences are people actually physically being taken in the night. I'm talking about contact experiences, abductions, or whether it is a consciousness phenomena, people's consciousness experiencing different dimensionality and interacting with these intelligences, or this is something much more than we could even understand, that these beings have the ability to manipulate everything about our reality, including stopping what we perceive as time and changing physical nature that's around us at all times. What do you think about that?
That's like the Adjustment Bureau, right?
Yeah.
You see them?
Yeah.
Dude, or Dark Crystal, I think is another one.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think honestly, dude, I think it's all of it, really. I think it's all going on. That there's like physical people being taken up on ships, there's consciousness, there's astral travel going on, out of body experiences, near death experiences where you meet Jesus, but it's actually maybe an ET. Because that's something I'm huge into. I actually, we do the live stream for the largest near-death experience conference every year, and it goes around the US. There's like 10,000 people there, clinicians, doctors, all this stuff, and I'm just there listening to hours and hours of information. And the amount of people that see God's, Jesus, all this stuff, and then I'm looking deeper into it. I'm like, wow, look, a lot of those seem to be screen memories, giving you what you want to see in order for you not to freak out from what's really going on, you know?
Now,
So
does
I feel
that make that a malevolent experience if they're deceiving us in any way? It seems like a trickster type of being.
I know, dude, right? See, I don't know. Like, I think it would be best if it was like the movie Contact, where it goes, "Hey, I'm not really your dad, but I'm just letting you know."
At least explain it first.
Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it is Jesus. You know?
Yeah. It's very interesting. There's so much happening with all this. I don't think that in our lifetime we probably won't ever have a complete understanding of anything that's going on. But bit by bit, I think we're getting pieces of the puzzle, and we're in very interesting times overall. Neil, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, brother.
Before we close out, let the audience know once again how they can find you and your conferences and everything you got going on.
Yes. So the best thing to do, portaltoascension.org, sign up there. You get access to our website. You get 3,000 hours of free content. New websites launching this week. And you'll see all types of, you can sort by category, speaker, all of that. And we're always adding new content. Upcoming events has all of our upcoming events, do 70 to 90 events a year. We're going to do a huge conference, a second annual conference in Glastonbury this year in the UK, Portal to Ascension Glastonbury. And the website is ascensionglastonbury.com. And then the cruise, Portal at Sea. We'll have that website up later. So, but the best thing to do is sign up on our website, and you'll get all the information of what we got going on.
Now, is there any conferences you having coming to the States near the Colorado or Southwest area?
Well, so Southwest is that doesn't include. Does it include California?
Yeah.
So we did California last year, Portal Ascension, and now we're taking a year off. I'm moving to Thailand, so I'm going to be out there. Yeah, and in May of next year, we're going to be back in the U.S. So May 2025, Portal to Ascension, San Diego.
Right on.
You should
Excellent. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why I was asking.
come.
Excellent, Neil. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have to talk again in the future. And until
you,
next
brother.
time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow.